To the galaxy's apex predators, survival is a simple biological reflex. But humans just changed the rules of the game forever. We don't just endure terror, we weaponize it, turning the universe's deadliest hunting grounds into high-stakes arenas for sport. Watch how we transform primal dread into a calculated tactical masterclass. Across 10,000 star systems, across millions of years of recorded galactic history, the laws of survival have never changed. Every civilized species, from the crystalline mines of the Solarian Hive to the massive armored dreadnoughts of the Krellian Empire, bows to the exact same biological equation. When a creature encounters a predator, the brain executes a fixed command. It is the primitive binary code of the cosmos: fight or flight. To an alien military strategist, terror is not merely an emotion. It is a mathematical variable. It is the central nervous system's emergency protocol, designed to preserve life by forcing a creature to run, freeze, or surrender to the dominant force. For centuries, galactic warfare was completely predictable. If an empire engineered a beast that was 9 feet tall with armor-piercing claws, the opposing army's infantry would suffer a mandatory psychological collapse. Their stress meters would spike, their formations would shatter, their battle lines would break. Survival was a static calculation, a rigid line of evolutionary code that no species had ever dared to rewrite. Until galactic survey vessels charted Sector 4 and made first contact with the inhabitants of a small, death-filled rock called Earth. When the High Council of the Orion Coalition first reviewed human neurological data, they assumed their sensors were malfunctioning. Alien species evolved on world gardens, worlds where ecosystems were balanced, where predators were logical, and where danger was predictable. Humanity did not have that luxury. Humans did not spend their evolution sitting safely at the crown of the food chain. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans were prey. Our ancestors spent millennia crouching in pitch-black caves during glacial winters, listening to saber-toothed cats and megafauna crushing the bones of their kin just outside the entrance. Fear was not an occasional shock to the human system. Fear was the environment. Fear was the air we breathed. Fear was the background noise of human existence. And because humanity lived in the shadows of giants for so long, our neural wiring broke. And when it put itself back together, it created a psychological monstrosity. Where an alien brain experiences terror as a paralyzing shock, the human brain experiences it as a chemical cocktail. When a nightmarish creature lunges out of the dark, a human's prefrontal cortex doesn't shut down. Instead, it triggers an explosive deluge of neurochemicals. Adrenaline floods the bloodstream. Cortisol razor sharpens perception. And dopamine, the chemical of reward and pleasure, lights up the brain like a supernova. Time appears to slow down. Peripheral vision tunnels directly onto the target. The heart rate doesn't panic. It pumps oxygenated blood into muscles with military efficiency. Where the rest of the galaxy sees a life-ending nightmare, a human brain registers a high-voltage thrill. Where an alien sees absolute dread, a human sees the ultimate game. The first true demonstration of this insanity occurred on the border planet of Xylar Prime. A squad of elite Vornac shadow stalkers, apex hunters renowned across 6 star systems for their cloaking abilities and lethal venom, ambushed a human military outpost in a dense sulfur swamp. Standard tactical doctrine dictated that the humans would immediately retreat to their dropships in blind panic. The Vornac commander turned on his thermal visor, anticipating the familiar sight of terrified soldiers fleeing through the mud. Instead, he saw something that baffled his tactical HUD. The human commander, cornered in a knee-deep swamp with smoke blinding his visor, wasn't running. He was leaning against a shattered tree, checking his pulse counter, and laughing into his tactical radio. Control, this is Team Alpha, the human said, his voice entirely steady. We've got 3 cloaked stalkers in the perimeter. High agility, lethal range. Setting up the perimeter traps now. Loser buys drinks back at base. The Vornac stalkers were stunned. There was no terror to exploit, no panic to track, no helpless prey to butcher. What the predators called an ancient, sacred hunt, the humans had turned into an informal betting match. Within 40 minutes, the humans had mapped the stalkers' movement patterns using improvised acoustic sensors. They used the terrifying roars of the beasts to triangulate their exact positions. They intentionally let the creatures get close, just to test their reaction.
They intentionally let the creatures get close, just to test their reaction times. The predators didn't lose because they lacked strength. They lost because their entire doctrine was built on intimidation. And they were fighting a species that found intimidation entertaining.
It did not take long for humanity to take this madness to its logical extreme. When the Galactic Federation offered humans peaceful diplomatic quarters, humans asked for access to the galaxy's most lethal death worlds instead. Planets where the atmosphere was acidic, where gravity crushed bone, and where apex bioweapons roamed free. The aliens thought we were colonizing them for resources. They were wrong. We didn't build refineries. We didn't build mines. We built stadiums. Within 2 decades, human sports syndicates had rebranded the universe's deadliest monsters into high-stakes entertainment. Aliens watched in complete horror on live holographic broadcasts as human operatives, armed only with lightweight kinetic blades and high-mobility thrusters, dropped into hostile zones for fun. They watched a human dodge a 50-foot Leviathan strike with millisecond precision, doing an inverted flip in zero gravity, just to gain style points from a panel of judges back on Earth. The alien ambassadors asked the human high command a simple question. Why do your people risk annihilation for entertainment? The general looked at the holographic feeds, took a sip of his coffee, and replied, because back home, fear isn't something that breaks us. It's the fuel that tells us we're alive. This is the tactical masterclass of humanity. Where an alien warrior relies on brute force or natural camouflage, a human turns the enemy's terror tactics against them. When an apex beast lets out a bioacoustic shriek designed to shatter nervous systems, human tactical suits record the frequency, invert the wave, and blast it right back to disorient the beast's own senses. When a predator hides in absolute darkness, humans turn on multi-spectrum thermal optics, turning the shadow into a neon target gallery. And when a monster charges with unstoppable velocity, the human doesn't brace for impact. They step aside at the final frame, using the monster's own momentum to launch it off a cliff face. Survival is no longer a fixed mathematical equation. In human hands, it is a fluid variable, manipulated in real time with cold, grinning precision.
So, to the apex predators across the galactic fringe, take this as a tactical advisory before you cross into human space. If you bring dark corridors, we will turn them into racetracks. If you bring nightmarish monsters, we will turn them into trophies on our mantelpieces. And if you bring terror, we will invite the whole galaxy to watch us play the game. Because in a universe ruled by fight or flight, humanity chose a third option. Dominate and enjoy the thrill. For eons, the galaxy assigned humanity a single permanent role in the cosmic ecosystem. Prey. We were expected to run. We were expected to hide in the dark. We were expected to beg whatever nightmare ruled the night for mercy. Then, the shift happened. Humanity did not just learn to defend itself against the horrors of the void. We did something far more sinister. We stepped out of the shadow of the food chain and seized the controls. We became the game masters. We realized that an apex predator, no matter how fast or lethal, is bound by its own instincts. They are driven by hunger, driven by territorial rage, driven by the absolute confidence that they are the deadliest things in the room. And confidence
is the easiest thing in the universe to exploit. Instead of hunting monsters down, we began building environments designed explicitly for their failure, luring multi-limbed horrors and invisible stalkers into engineered labyrinths where their every natural advantage became an inescapable trap.
When alien observers first witnessed our combat arenas, they assumed these were punishment zones, prisons, perhaps, where condemned criminals were forced to fight lethal beasts as an execution sentence. Imagine their absolute sheer disbelief when they learned that these humans were volunteers. They were adrenaline junkies, tactical athletes, extreme sport competitors, who signed waivers and paid millions for the privilege of facing galactic nightmares for glory. Humans built elaborate, multi-tiered arenas across barren moons and toxic death worlds. In these arenas, the monsters weren't locked in cages. The monsters were unleashed into simulated habitats, while human contestants dropped in with lightweight armor, energy blades, and jump jets. What the Orion Federation viewed as an unspeakable biological horror, human television networks broadcasted in ultra-high definition as the main event on Saturday night.
The true genius of human warfare is not our strength. It is our ability to study biology and turn it into a flaw. Consider the Gorgon stalker, a predator that hunts entirely through infrared heat signatures, sensing the thermal pulse of a human heart from 3 miles away in absolute pitch darkness. To an alien infantry squad, the Gorgon is invisible and terrifying. To a human combat engineer, heat vision is simply an unencrypted broadcast channel. Human operatives don't try to hide their body heat. They flood the battlefield with microthermal flares, creating 50 fake human heat signatures in a single second. The Gorgon's specialized thermal eyes are instantly blinded by a sea of phantom targets. Its greatest evolutionary superpower, rendered completely useless by $50 worth of human pyrotechnics. It doesn't stop at thermal sight. Take the apex predators that hunt by pheromones or neural tracking, creatures that can smell fear, track adrenaline, or lock onto the distinct electrical impulses of a nervous system. In a human-designed arena, these senses become lethal liabilities. Humans deploy synthetic pheromone canisters that mimic the scent of terrified prey, steering massive beasts directly into kill boxes, seismic traps, and gravity wells. The predator believes it is following the scent of an easy meal, only to realize, too late, that it was following a pre-programmed path written by a human technician sitting behind a glass monitor. Their natural strengths become their biological blindfolds, and every instinct that kept them at the top of their homeworld's food chain for 10 million years guarantees their defeat in a human game. The most terrifying moment for any galactic apex predator is not the moment it gets wounded. It is the moment of realization. The moment the beast realizes that the human in front of them isn't panicking. The moment it realizes the fog, the darkness, the narrow corridors were not natural obstacles, but deliberate architectural choices made by human builders. When a predator roars to intimidate, and the human responds by checking the arena clock to see if they're beating their personal speedrun record, the psychological balance shatters. For the first time in its biological history, the monster feels an emotion it was never designed to process: confusion, followed immediately by genuine terror.
This is the architecture of human play. We do not conquer monsters to eradicate them. We conquer them to prove that no biological horror in the cosmos can outthink, outsmart, or outplay human ingenuity. What the universe designed as terrifying hunting grounds, humanity turned into high-stakes sports arenas. Where galactic beasts bring claws and instinct, humans bring engineering, strategy, and an unquenchable thirst for the ultimate rush. Welcome to the arena. The game has just begun. By the mid-21st century, humanity had solved almost every material problem. Poverty was engineered away. Disease was mapped and eradicated. Safety was absolute across the core worlds. And yet, human civilization faced a new kind of quiet extinction: boredom. In a universe of padded corners and automated comfort, humanity developed an obsession with the one thing money couldn't buy: the chemical rush of a near-death encounter. Across human territories, a new societal phenomenon took hold: fear sport culture. Adrenaline was no longer viewed as an unwanted stress response. It became a valuable commodity, a badge of honor, the ultimate societal currency. The higher the threat level, the greater the status. While alien civilizations built elaborate stasis chambers to avoid danger, humans actively sought out the galactic borderlands just to feel their hearts pound against their ribs once again. To understand why alien armies shatter against human forces, one must understand the tactical phenomenon known as the flow state. When a Gorgon executioner or a Krellian juggernaut corners an infantry squad, they expect blind panic. They expect frantic, uncoordinated movements. Instead, when a human soldier steps into extreme danger, their brain shifts into a hyper-focused, tranquil neurological frequency. The noise of the battlefield fades into total silence. Pain receptors are chemically suppressed. Complex tactical variables are processed in milliseconds. Where an alien soldier sees a chaotic hellscape of plasma fire and screaming beasts, a human in the flow state treats a life-threatening encounter with the cold, effortless focus of a professional athlete. They do not fight to survive, they perform.
This psychological shift created a devastating anomaly for galactic hunters. For millions of years, apex predators across the Orion Arm tracked prey using chemical sensors. They locked onto the scent of primal terror, cold sweat, spiking cortisol, and the involuntary muscle tremors of a dying creature. When alien pursuers deployed these same bioscanners against human squads, the sensors produced complete nonsense. There was no scent of terror to follow. Instead, the biomonitors detected elevated body heat, surging endorphins, and the distinct neurochemical signature of pure, unadulterated excitement. The predators weren't tracking terrified prey hiding in the dark. They were being stalked by creatures whose blood was burning with the thrill of the chase. Imagine the sheer biological horror from the predator's perspective. You are an ancient hunter. Your species has spent 10,000 generations perfecting the art of psychological warfare. You step into the open, unleash a bone-shattering roar, and prepare to feast on the panic of your victim. And the human doesn't even flinch. Instead, the human adjusts their gauntlet armor, looks you dead in the eyes, and whispers a single phrase into their comms. Finally, a real challenge. The predator's instincts stall. Its evolutionary rulebook contains no response for prey that enjoys being hunted. It has no protocol for an opponent that treats a fatal claw strike as a dodge mechanic in a game. In that single moment of hesitation, the predator ceases to be the apex and becomes the target. What the galaxy views as a nightmare, humanity monetized in engine turned into an empire. Arena streaming networks broadcasted live combat data across thousands of light years. Alien diplomats watched in silent horror as billions of human viewers tuned in not to root for survival, but to wager on who could pull off the most dangerous tactical maneuver. The apex predators of the cosmos were no longer feared conquerors. They were featured bosses, level hazards, high-value targets in an interstellar tournament. Humanity took the universe's ultimate weapon, terror, and stripped it of its power, turning it into background music for our favorite sport.
So to the galactic empires still contemplating a war with Earth, listen closely to the lesson of Sector 4. Do not threaten us with dark worlds. We built arenas there. Do not threaten us with nightmarish beasts. We turn them into content. And do not try to strike fear into our hearts, because fear is our favorite currency. And when you bring the terror, humanity will always come to collect. To an alien war council, discipline in battle is maintained through terror, rank, and threat of execution. Human soldiers, however, discovered a far more potent motivator: competition. During lethal extraterrestrial incursions, when plasma fire paints the sky and Titan-class beasts crush concrete beneath their feet, human squads do not panic. They log into squad-level competitive ranking networks. Every ambush dodged, every bioweapon neutralized, every impossible shot landed under heavy fire is assigned a numerical score. Where an alien operative suffers psychological strain trying to maintain formation, a human soldier stays composed because they are actively trying to climb their squad's weekly leaderboard. Composure isn't enforced by fear. It is driven by the desire to hold the top rank.
The ultimate biological weapon in humanity's arsenal is not kinetic artillery, nor high-yield plasma. It is laughter. In every known ecosystem across the galaxy, an apex hunter relies on a single psychological trigger to paralyze prey: a shock of absolute terror. When a 10-foot-tall bioengineered abomination corners a target, it expects screaming, freezing, or frantic begging. Instead, human soldiers look directly into the glowing eyes of cosmic horror and laugh. To an alien mind, laughter in the presence of death is an incomprehensible logical error. It violates the predatory instinct of the aggressor. It signals to the hunter's brain that the creature standing before them does not recognize their threat. Laughter strips the monster of its primary power before the first shot is even fired. For 10,000 years, the apex species of Sector 4 believed they were the protagonists of the universe. They fought wars. They carved out star empires. They viewed themselves as the ultimate evolutionary achievement. And then came the moment of realization. The moment an elite alien hunter realizes they are not the main character in this story. They are merely an obstacle, a mid-level encounter, a target standing in the way of a human operative trying to set a new high score. The predator prepares an elaborate ambush, only to hear the human check their wrist HUD and complain, "This boss fight is taking too long. I'm losing my speedrun bonus." The shift is immediate and devastating. The hunter realizes their entire existence has been reduced to a challenge objective in someone else's game.
Humanity did not stop at local squad leaderboards. We networked the entire frontier. When colonial outposts come under siege by alien swarms, defensive telemetry is broadcasted in real time across human space. Flawless dodge, multi-kill combo, Apex neutralized in under 30 seconds. The metrics flow across holographic displays in orbital lounges and military academies. Alien commanders reviewing human battle footage were horrified to discover that human squads were deliberately taking tactical disadvantages, using lower caliber weapons, or intentionally drawing extra enemy fire simply to earn higher difficulty multipliers on the public boards. What the galaxy designed as a war of attrition, humans transformed into a grand galactic arcade. When you fight a species that fears death, you can break their will with overwhelming force. When you fight a species that gamifies death, overwhelming force simply increases the fun. The alien aggressor, accustomed to seeing terror in the eyes of their victims, finds themselves surrounded by enemies who treat their deadliest attacks as predictable attack patterns to be dodged for extra points. The biological foundation of the apex hunter crumbles. Its rage turns to confusion, its confidence turns to doubt, and for the first time in its species' history, the predator turns around and flees.
So, to the warlords and apex hunters watching beyond the fringe, understand the reality of crossing into human territory. You are not bringing war. You are bringing content. You are not bringing terror. You are bringing bonus points. And when you step onto our battlefield, remember to play your part well, because humanity is keeping score, and we never lose a game. For 1 billion years, the hierarchy of the cosmos was simple. The strong ate the weak, the armed conquered the defenseless, and the apex predators ruled the star lanes. Every species hunted for a reason: to feed their young, to secure their territory, or to eliminate a strategic threat. Then the hierarchy shattered. Humanity entered the galactic stage and introduced a concept so alien, so utterly unthinkable, that it fundamentally rewrote the food chain. Humans became the only species in recorded history that hunts not for the kill, but for the thrill. We do not conquer out of necessity. We do not hunt out of hunger. We step onto lethal battlefields simply to feel the electric spark of being truly alive. For centuries, galactic empires maintained peace through intimidation. If a rebel system stepped out of line, you sent a fleet of leviathans. You broadcasted terrifying threats. You let fear do the work for you. Against humanity, this strategy did not just fail, it backfired with catastrophic results. To an alien war fleet, a terrifying display of military power is a warning to stay away. To human civilization, a terrifying display of power is an open invitation. Fear is no longer a deterrent. It is a beacon, a signal flare that tells every adrenaline seeker, mercenary, and thrill hunter in human space that something exciting is happening. Threaten humanity, and we won't surrender. We will show up with cameras, scoreboards, and a burning desire for sportsmanship. The future of interspecies relations has taken a bizarre and terrifying turn. Alien warlords who once demanded galactic tribute now spend their budget hiring human security teams to protect them from other humans. Federation ambassadors no longer open negotiations with military threats because they realized the moment they use fear as a diplomatic tool, the human diplomats don't back down. They lean forward, adjust their glasses, and ask, "Are you offering us a deal, or are you offering us a game?" The cosmic balance of power has been permanently inverted. The galaxy has learned that when you poke the human bear, it doesn't just bite back. It turns the wilderness into a theme park and sells tickets. In a universe governed by cold, hard evolutionary instinct, every creature respects death. They flee from it. They build walls against it. They pray to avoid its grasp. Except one. Humanity took the ultimate taboo of biological life and treated it as a plaything. We jump off orbital dropships for sport. We wrestle megafauna for bragging rights. We walk into active kill zones with a grin on our faces and a pulse rate that stays cool under pressure. The galaxy has finally realized the horrific truth. The most dangerous predator in the cosmos is not the beast with the largest fangs, nor the empire with the biggest guns. It is the being that plays with death for fun. To every apex hunter watching from the dark fringes of space, let this be the final record of Sector 4. You believed terror was your birthright. You believed survival was a rigid mathematical equation. You believed prey would always remain prey. You were wrong. Humanity broke the equation. We rewrote the biological rules, and we built our empire on the very fear you tried to conquer us with. So bring your nightmarish beasts, bring your darkest arenas, bring your ultimate apex predators. Step into the ring, press start, and watch how humanity claims the title of the universe. Game on.